the Chairperson, Excellencies, delegates, the salubrious environment of the green city of Sharm el-Sheikh will undoubtedly inspire our discussions at COP27 to a successful conclusion. I sincerely thank the Government of Egypt for your warm welcome and hospitality. Mr. Chairman, in order to make my speech brief, I will eliminate the achievements of Sri Lanka in regard to climate change, which will certainly be included in the written speeches. There's only one issue that I refer to in Sri Lanka. Yet for climate action to be successful, wide-ranging measures to complement the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement must be pursued. The lack of capacity is the biggest obstacle to the implementation of climate action plans. Therefore, capacity building is vital in this regard. To overcome this obstacle, we propose to establish an international climate change university in Sri Lanka with an ancillary institute in Maldives that will be the first of its type. This seat of learning can be a transdisciplinary global center for green and blue studies, for scientists, environmentalists, researchers, policymakers, development practitioners, and of course, students the world over to interchange knowledge transcending national and disciplinary boundaries. The envisaged Climate Change University will offer both short-term courses and postgraduate academic awards to build capabilities on the mitigating and adapting to climate change. The university will also expedite the skills of the new generations to deliver the political, economic, social, cultural, and digital transformation required to prevent a 1.5 centigrade world. It would be the vehicle to enlighten climate change challenges and prospects domestically. The collaboration of multilateral institutions and organizations such as the Commonwealth, World Bank, and the ADB, amongst others, will be sought for the establishment of the Institute of Higher Learning, making it a multi-stakeholder partnership transcending national boundaries. It's my hope that Sri Lanka's proposal will receive extensive support and endorsement from the international community. Since the prescription for addressing climate change have to be dispensed in the global domain, we will meet again next year, charged with high hopes. However, the checkered implementation of previous decisions, including those of COP26, is extremely disheartening. Regrettably, the ground reality is that the fossil fuel-based industrialized countries of G7 and G20, who have been the main promoters of green hydrogen, are now backtracking to use fossil fuel. In the last year, carbon dioxide emissions increased by 2 billion metric tons, from 3.3 billion to 36.3 billion metric tons. Such double standards are unacceptable. Developed nations should be giving leadership to overcome climate challenges rather than abdicating their responsibilities. It is no secret that climate financing has missed the target. It's ironic that the $100 billion pledged annually have not been available in the coffers to finance climate challenges, as many developed nations deem it fit to renege on their climate financing contributions. These countries, who are also on both sides of the Ukraine war, seem to have no qualms spending for a war which will finally exceed $350 billion, a conflict waged purportedly for security interests of the combatants. The only security at stake is food insecurity, exacerbated to levels not experienced before the war. Many living both in the developed and the developing world are outside the scope of three meals a day. It is estimated that between 30 to 40 million people are being driven into hunger, especially in Africa. This war has also resulted in the upward spiraling cost of living, shortages of oil and gas supplies, and it has brought the fight against hunger to our homes. Expectedly, it has led to the curtailing of much required climate financing pledged by these very same countries. The issue we have is not of finding the party responsible for the war, but the party that will end the war. Why do we need this funding? It is known fact that the practice of colonialism transferred the rich resources of Asia and Africa to Europe and were used to industrialize their countries. We became poor from this plunder. This unbridled industrialization of the developed economies is also the root cause of climate change, the consequence of which we, the poor countries, are forced to suffer. Our problems are augmented due to the absence of adequate funding. Therefore, those in South are facing a double jeopardy, struggling to develop economically while fighting to protect the living standards of our population. It is therefore imperative that the developed countries deliver on their pledges in Glasgow by doubling their funding. Adding insult to injury, damages caused by extreme weather conditions are increasing and their impact exceedingly costly. Developing countries who are the worst affected by the rise in emission from industrial world need to be compensated for loss and damage. Considering the failure of the developed world in bringing about the much discussed relief, it is proposed that before we get to Dubai for COP28, like-minded nations should meet at ministerial level to discuss the way forward on all aspects of climate financing. This should be followed with the meeting of the heads of government of these countries on the margins of COP28 to display a collective frame of mind to stave off calamity. In conclusion, let me recall the UN Secretary General's recent word that the choice is between collective action or collective suicide. The vacuum created due to inaction now requires the global display of sustained political will by dynamic action and constructive cooperation on the part of like-minded countries to prevent this catastrophe. Let us traverse this path urgently. Thank you.